Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for December 30th, 2022, our last one of the year. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and also present are Ralph Kohler, who is sharing the screen, and Offer Shao. Go ahead, Ralph.
Okay. Yesterday, issue number 3241295 got committed. It's about CK editor 5 isn't respecting the field widgets row settings. That issue is necessary for the context of the issue I wanted to bring up today. Just for the context, in CK editor 4, those, oops, 1 second. So widget row settings had more or less no real effect. You were unable to determine if you set, for example, a row of 9 for the Usability field of the body, what's the height will be of that particular field later on in the node edit form. But in CK editor 5, that changed. And if you see here in the example, if you set, for example, a row of 9, or no matter which number of rows you've set, you always ended up with a single line heighted row that expanded as soon as you started entering content, and that was sort of suboptimal and confusing. The issue got up to speed, and the problem is, the issue I want to talk today about is, back then, that particular text editors in parentheses, like CK editor, parentheses closed, may override this setting. And mainly my cursor pushed the issue forward on the code side. And currently, I haven't tested that. Screenshot is maybe 1 or 2 commits before the patch landed. And currently it behaves the following way. Summary is totally fine. So if you enter 1, return, 2, return, 3, return, and so forth, and you have set a summary height of 5, then you get also 5 lines in. Problem is, in the WYSIWYG, if you enter a return, then that line gets wrapped in a p tag, and that has a margin. And therefore, in that case, I have set the rows to 7, and if you enter 1, return, 2, return, you get exactly 7. Problem is, if I enter a longer text, longer than the width of the field, and you get, for example, 2 lines, and then make a return. In that case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 returns, and I get a smaller number. And in the end, here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines. So it's hard to predict. 1 second. I have also, here's the example, 9 rows and 3 columns in this example with the latest summary, perfectly fine. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 returns. So it's basically, it's impossible on a code side to architect it that you have the exact height, because you don't know how many returns the content editor will enter. So, and the issue I wanted to talk about is the follow-up issue number 3330159, potentially confusing wording in text area widget. Where is the screenshot again? No, I'm here. The text got changed to text editors may override this setting. And And proposed solution, find a way to phrase text editors may override the setting without making it sound like it is referring to people editing text while explaining that not all text editors are taking this setting into account. And I might extend that to also communicate the problem that what you see in the body field. So it refers to basically a number of returns, or you understand what I mean. It's hard to express, but yeah, that the site builder and the editors have the certain expectation what to expect.
In the CK editor, does it use CSS for that height, or is it something else, or it does its own thing regardless?
Again, please. Yeah, the first part I haven't understood. Sorry.
What you showed us in CK editor?
Yeah.
I'm asking, is that CSS that is defined by this number 9 here, or does it do its own thing regardless of what's entered here?
No, it's based on the numbers that are entered there. It's 1 second. Where's the patch? It's based on a formula. Where is it? Option. Oh, I'm not sure about the technical details, but it is.
Actually, Ralph, go back to the patch.
Yeah.
And scroll down a bit. What was the phrase? I saw a code comment. Keep going. A little faster. There. Oh, it says double the editor row count. Why not search the page for row count? Row space count.
That's the only one.
All right. Now, I also saw a comment about inserting a paragraph tag to do some calculation a little bit further up.
That one you mean.
All right. All right, so back to the wording. I think that the general principle is that it's better to describe what something does rather than what it doesn't do. So maybe instead of saying that the editor can override this, we should say when it does apply. And it does apply if you have a plain HTML text area And of course, that's not the case when you've enabled an editor for a certain text format. On the other hand, talking about HTML elements might be the wrong thing to do for the intended audience. Well, the intended audience is site builders, not content editors. So maybe it's okay to talk about HTML elements, but
But 1 second. Just copy and paste.
Also, my guess would be that if there's like a heading 1, all of a sudden, it will also be less than 9 rows.
Yeah, even one line, even 1 row less that way.
It sounds like the rows really apply, as Benji, I think, said, like for unformatted text.
Yeah.
Is expected. Anything else is now no longer measured in rows because the height can vary.
Yeah. But
And is CK Editor the example of text editor that wouldn't take that setting, or there's other editors that do something completely different?
probably something completely different, but I'm not aware if there are any other editors used, or for example, how even CK Editor 4 would behave. I suppose that patch only applies to CK Editor 5. That was introduced in, that one. That's CK Editor 5 specific. And therefore,
would it help calling it like maximum amount of rows? Because then I'm trying to find a way to put it there, and so people are not specifically looking for how come it's not 9 exactly.
it's tricky. Maybe the text for the summary rows and the text for the rows should differ. Because I think the summary rows are now probably correct, at least in CK Editor 5. I'm not sure how it behaves in other editors.
It looks like even summary rows doesn't load the CK editor interface, if I saw that correctly. from what the screen share?
I'm not aware if the summary usually has a toolbar for CK Editor 5. I assumed it would be also built in CK Editor 5 or using CK Editor 5 in that regard.
So I suggested something in the chat. It's probably too long, but it is pretty explicit. Let's see, a text editor, a WYSIWYG text editor. That's a phrase that most people understand. Text editor can be assigned to a text format. And what I don't remember off the top of my head what determines which text format will be assigned to a text area.
Underneath. There you're able to assign it, and in content authoring text formats, you have the order and the format on top is the default one. So in that case, it's CK Editor 5.
Oh, I just saw something a few days ago that's relevant to this. Let me see if I can find that issue. You know, there's a module that lets you set a text format per field. And I believe that I believe that functionality will be in Drupal core in 10.1.
Oh.
What's it, smart formats or something? And yes, here's the change record. So if you go to the change record, that will show you the issue. You know, for some reason, it's taking a long time for the issue to load. Here it goes. 784672. Wow. A 6-digit issue number. This was opened in 2010. And it was fixed this month, or possibly last month. Yeah, it was fixed November 29th. So for the sake of the recording, the change record is node 3318572, and the related issue is 784672. So if you're working with the latest 10.1.x,
Yep.
That should already be implemented.
In the field. Okay. Ah. Yeah, that's that one allowed text formats. Let's narrow it down.
Oh, it's not on the form display.
No, it's full HTML and basic HTML.
Ah, yes, it's a field setting. It's not format. I was looking at my own screen, not at yours.
I've limited it only to full HTML and basic HTML in that case now, and then the options are only full HTML and basic HTML. I suppose that's the gist of the issue. Yeah.
Well, I remember how I came across this. I've started a little migration project at work, and the Drupal 7 site I'm migrating from has the contributed module that provides this functionality. And so I looked at that module. The module page has a link to the issue. And I looked at the issue and, oh my gosh, that issue has been fixed. This will be in Drupal 10.1. Right. So the way it works is that the site builder can assign a text editor, a WYSIWYG editor, by default CK editor or CK editor 5, to a text format. The field may or may not restrict which text formats are allowed, and then the user editing may or may not have permission to use certain text formats. So when those various restrictions are combined, some format is provided. If more than one is available, the user has this little select list. And then if the text format has text editor assigned, then instead of a plain text HTML text area, the editor takes over and does what it wants with the setting. I haven't thought that through in a long time. So without saying all of that on the settings page, how much do we want to say? And I pasted it, or I typed into the chat a suggestion. It's kind of long, but this setting applies to simple HTML text areas. If a text editor is assigned at admin configured content formats, then that editor will control the size. Maybe that's too much information, maybe that's too long, but it sort of explains what's going on. And I guess the usability question is, what information are we trying to convey? What action will be taken based on that information? And what's the feedback loop when someone selects this value? What do they expect to happen? And how can we help them understand what happens?
One thought. I'm not sure if control, for me, control always sounds like it is overriding it. And maybe something like interpret might be better, but still my main issue is, at first I'm happy that the body field isn't one line initially anymore, but the expectation, what height to expect with, for example, 7 rows, and the differing, because you are unable to predict what kind of content is entered. So, but to communicate what those rows refer to for the body field in, for example, context of CK editor 5, that I consider important somehow, and that isn't communicated in the suggestion provided here with text editors may override a setting that sounds as is says nothing basically. Yours is much better, but still the gist of that I don't get out of it as a user.
Well, what additional information do we want to give? And maybe if we're not coming up with any ideas on the spot, we should just stop the discussion now, and maybe something will come to us over the next couple of days.
Just getting back, one question in regards to what Ove was saying. The summary field, if the text format is, for example, set to CK805 on full HTML, is that then still an HTML text area, or is it a CK805?
I'm sorry, you're asking about the summary?
Yeah, a summary field here on for text format set to full HTML, which equals CK805. Is that field an HTML text area, or is it also a CK editor field?
It seems to be a plain text area.
Okay. But if I remember correctly, before the patch was applied, the setting, oops, there are too many screens open, and where's my cursor? Yeah, there. Because without the patch applied, the summary row setting also wasn't accurate and got accurate just with the patch applied. So therefore my question also, it's complicated somehow. Oops. Yeah, but I agree, maybe we should postpone it.
And we are more than halfway through the time for this meeting. Let's have a quick look at the issue that Andy Blum brought up, and I'll share my screen.
Oops. Oh, was too fast. Stopping. Sorry.
That's okay. Just give me a minute to find the right window. Here we go. Start the chat again. So let's see. So yeah, I was experimenting with the issue we were talking about. Just let me scroll to the top. This issue was 1259906. Style Oliveira's implementation of the forum module to look like a forum. As we were discussing before the meeting, this is something that was created a long time ago in 2011. At the time, it was for the Bartik theme. Just scrolling through the comments, it didn't get a lot of attention for many years, but it seems to have been revived with 3 recent comments, and one of them changing it to the Oliveira theme. So what are the usability issues here? And I guess the issue description mentions that users had the feeling that the forum was a blog. So how do we distinguish a forum from a blog when you're looking at a list of posts. And I guess the point is that you need some sort of call to action to indicate that there are follow-ups or comments. So maybe the only usability input for this is that that we should make the navigation clear, that here's a button that will lead you to the existing comments on this post, and here's a button that lets you add your own comment. Does that
I
sound
don't see
about
your
right?
screen moving anymore. Seems to say something about the comments.
Screen isn't moving. I'm not scrolling at the moment, but
Oh, okay. I was thinking. Also, I guess a forum looks very different between a logged in and non-logged in user. Is there any reference to that over there?
There are very few comments on this issue. I don't think anyone brought that up. Recent components. Yeah, no one seems to have brought that up.
Another question, can we look at Drupal issues are kind of like a forum UI? Is that correct? I know it's a different theme, but just structure-wise.
Well, they're not threaded, which I guess is an option for a forum. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that Drupal issues are a kind of forum.
And can you show us again the screenshots they had for what's there now?
So general discussion.
So I'm assuming the top part is not in question, right? Like that is very much like a forum, or they also want to change that?
I don't know for sure, but I agree with you that seems to be okay, and it's this screenshot that I think is the issue, that that this looks a lot like a blog. That this doesn't have any indication that other users can interact with it.
Right. Maybe it's missing. That's what I'm also mentioned about the logged in, not logged in too. Oh, there is something there.
At the
In
very
forum,
bottom
can
of the
you
page.
post things beyond comments? Is that correct?
You can create a post and you can reply to posts. And I think the replies are comments. And there's also a lot of use of taxonomy. The taxonomy gives you a potential tree structure of topics, and then you create a post under a topic, under a forum topic.
Did other users have ideas of what would make it more forum-like?
Well, so far there's been very little discussion on the issue. I guess what I didn't do is follow this link at the very top. See details about the usability study. So let's follow this link. It goes to groups.drupal.org/node/163894. Report from IDE up Drupal Bartik theme testing. What did we test and how did we test them? We gathered install Drupal 7 Bartik theme. What tested well, what tested poorly, comments, poll, forum. Users do not differentiate the forum from the blog. Users did not feel their new forum topic was created successfully. Once created, it is displayed, but they expect it to be visible at /forum. So after seeing it created, they try to go to /forum to find it, but they don't. Second point, users had the feeling that the forum was a blog. Third point, users felt that the forum blocked hot topics, did not belong to the forum, but that it had topics related to the page they were viewing at the moment. And fourth point, users searched for the poll and forum links first in the left column rather than in the primary links menu in many occasions. Sometimes they would actually ignore the primary links menu when looking for something.
And two users mean literally two users did it? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it said further up that this test involved 10 users who are not familiar with Drupal. So 2 users means two people.
Could you go back to the issue, please, and to the
Sure.
screenshots, and scroll down a bit to the post example? Yeah. I've taken a look at one of the forum, on an example forum over here, and a few details that might help to communicate it's a forum is, for one, to each post add a number. So the initial post, I paste the link of an arbitrary example. If you take a look there and scroll down, you have for one post in the upper right corner a number. So the initial post has number 1. That's one thing. And on the other hand, also already the initial posting, it has always the same pattern. On the left, you have the avatar, the username, maybe the group the person is in, and then some statistics, members since a year, and the number of posts. And that way, that pattern already communicates it's a forum. That way people directly understand. And if you switch back to the example in the issue, how it is currently looking, yeah.
Let me move my tabs around a little bit.
Yeah. There you have the meta info by admin on the 23rd of December. On the first post, it looks like a blog. You have it underneath, and similar there. And if you restyle it, then it's more apparent that it's basically a communication. And it's also that way you're easier to directly link if you have the number of the post in that thread, then yeah, that might be.
I think the difference between what the other website you presented, what we're seeing here, the other website we saw, correct me if I'm wrong, all different issues in a forum, where here is a specific issue with comments.
Yeah.
Where we have the first page, which I think make it look like forums that have like a summary of here's the titles, the amount of replies, and make it feels like this is a forum to me than a blog. But once we click on it, maybe you can click on the other side and we can see how How does a post look with comments?
So is this the second post in a forum, or is this the second reply to a post?
That's the second reply on a post, or the first reply on a post. Basically, the initial post in that topic is number one.
And then I guess replies aren't threaded, or at least we don't see any threading on this page.
Yeah. Also, I would like to see what they do on mobile, because then they have less space to work with. And maybe they just bring it on top, the user info.
1 second. Yeah, it's on top.
Yeah, so I think Ralph has a good point that using some sort of customized user view mode for the forum would be a big help. And indicate number of posts, number of replies, that sort of thing. And then I think the calls to action, and that which I brought up earlier, and that ties in with what Offer said, that it depends on whether you're logged in or not. So naturally, the calls to action will be different. If you're not logged in, typically you can read, but you can't reply. So, of course, depending on your permissions, you'll only see the calls to action that you have permission to use.
Yeah, and on the side, it would be nice to have, which remind me of the Drupal issues, like somehow creating a shareable link with a number of response.
Yeah, that's the sort of call to action I'm thinking of, that a response should have some indication. This is response number 3 out of 22 to this post. A response should have a link to the post it's replying to. A post should have information about how many replies it has, as well as the navigation to the forum topic it's in. Some of this is out of scope for this issue. This issue is about the theme. So things like providing a different view mode for the author information, that's probably out of scope for the theme. Might be a follow-up issue for the forum module, which as Mike points out, forum module is probably going to be removed in Drupal 11. But for the moment, it's still in core, and that would be a way to improve it. Okay, I think I can write a comment summarizing our discussion. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up here? Okay, well, 5 minutes before the hour. And I think we can call it there. Thank you both for coming. And I expect we'll have larger groups of people in the meeting as we get into the new year and have new things to talk about.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care and
you.
have a good new year.
Have a good New Year.
Likewise.
Bye.
Bye-bye.